The cold needle pierced my wrist vein. The bright red blood flowed backward through the transfusion tube into the blood bag. My hand, holding the pen, trembled, yet I smiled as I signed my own name on the divorce agreement. Evelyn, Adrian, in a suit and tie, cufflinks gleaming with cold light. Didn't even glance at my pale face, only fixed on the signature spot, his tone full of impatience. Adrian says, "Evelyn, you finally recognized the situation this time. The signature takes effect. Go handle the procedures tomorrow. I won't treat your property unfairly, and don't entangle yourself like in the previous 8 times." I didn't say a word, I just pushed the signed agreement toward him. My fingertips brushed his hand, and he recoiled as if he had touched something dirty. He took out a tissue from the inner pocket of his suit and wiped again. The nurse beside him couldn't stand it any longer and softly reminded him, "Mr. Gu, Miss Sue is still donating blood. She is very weak and needs to rest." Adrian frowned, his eyes filled with disdain. Weak, pretending for whom? In the past, to avoid divorce, I didn't hesitate to perform stunts like jumping off buildings or into rivers. Now you're pretending to be ill to gain sympathy. He picked up the agreement and turned to leave. When he reached the door of the ward, his steps paused, but he did not look back, only leaving one sentence, "Oh, and if Ruoruo wakes up, I want to go to her side. Have the lawyer contact you about the follow-up." Ruru, Lena, they're at the tip of his heart, is also the forever patient in my marriage. 3 years ago, Lena had a car accident and became a vegetative patient. Adrian blamed me for all of it, saying if I hadn't argued with him and been distracted that day, Lena wouldn't have had the accident. Since then, he has averaged filing for divorce once a month, and this is the 9th time. The nurse pulled the needle out of my hand, sighed and said, "Miss Sue, your body can't donate blood anymore. The doctor said you." I raised my hand to interrupt her, took out a bank card from the bedside cabinet and handed it over. "This is for the nutrition. Please help me keep it confidential. Don't let Adrian know I was hospitalized. Just treat it as if I'm here to donate blood." The nurse looked at the bruises under my eyes and the colorless lips, and finally nodded. "I know my condition, late-stage stomach cancer. Cancer cells have spread throughout the body. Doctors say I have at most a month to live. The blood donation just now was to do one last favor for myself." I secretly kept Adrian's blood sample, and Lena's as well. The things I want to investigate require these items. Returning to the empty villa, which is Adrian's marital home. For 3 years the place I lived in was not even as good as a guest room. As soon as I stepped in, I saw the maid Mrs. Jenkins tidying up. Upon seeing my return, Mrs. Jenkins faltered in speech. I set down my handbag and casually asked, "Did Mr. Gu tell you to pack for me?" Mrs. Jenkins nodded slightly, her voice a little low, so said that once the divorce procedures are finished, you should move out. "These are the things you use often. I'll pack them for you first. Also, Miss Lin's people came to ask whether the master will come home tonight to keep her company and to have the kitchen simmer bird's nest." I walked into the kitchen and indeed saw a clay pot simmering with bird's nest, its rich fragrance filling the air. In these 3 years, Lena lay in the hospital. Adrian gave her all the best resources. Nutritionists, nurses, private doctors, rotating around her, and me. The last time I had a stomach ache so bad I fainted, it was a neighbor who took me to the hospital. Adrian received the call and only said to let me handle it myself. He couldn't spare the time. I scooped a spoonful of bird's nest and tasted it. It was sickly sweet. I suddenly remembered 3 years ago, when I had just married Adrian, he used to boil bird's nest for me every morning as well, saying it would fatten me up and make me white and plump. Back then, his gaze toward me was full of gentleness. But all of that came to a sudden halt on the day Lena happened. The phone rang. It was my attending physician Dr. Charles calling. Dr. Charles said, "Evelyn, your test results are in. Things are not good. The cancer cells have already metastasized to the liver. You must be hospitalized immediately for treatment. You can't delay any longer." I lean against the kitchen doorway, watching the bird's nest in the pot gradually boil, and softly say, "Dr. Charles, there is no need for treatment. Help me keep this secret, especially not letting Adrian know. Also, did you find any results on the thing I asked you to look into?" Dr. Charles fell silent for a few seconds and said, "We found it out. Lena's medical examination report has problems. 3 years ago she wasn't in a vegetative state at all, she was in a deep coma. And her coma had nothing to do with you, it was because when she was driving, the brakes failed, and the brakes had been tampered with. Also, Adrian's blood sample compared with the DNA of the child you previously miscarried shows that that child is not Adrian's." The spoon in my hand clattered to the ground, shattering into pieces. I had long suspected that when I had a miscarriage 3 years ago, Adrian's reaction was too icy, cold to be a father. At that time I thought he blamed me for losing the child, but now I know that he had known something all along. Dr. Charles continued, "There's something even stranger. Lena has been in the hospital for these 3 years, and besides Adrian, there's another man who often visits her. I checked, and it's Lena's first boyfriend, and they have private financial dealings." With substantial amounts, I take a deep breath and suppress the fishy-sweet taste in my throat, saying, "Dr. Charles, thank you for organizing these evidences and handing them to my lawyer attorney. Also, please arrange for me to record a few video clips." I hung up the phone, crouching on the floor to pick up the shattered spoon. My fingers were cut, beads of blood seeping out, mixing with the bird's nest on the floor, curiously red, at this moment. Adrian's phone received a text message from Lena's aide, "Mr. Gu, Miss Lin woke up and wants to see you, and she said she wants you to make her kanji." I looked at the text message and suddenly burst into laughter, laughing until the tears came out. Adrian had no idea that every time he made Lena porridge, it was actually something I had prepared in advance, and he only pretended to carry it over. He also didn't know that Leneth nonsense she called out every time she awoke was all taught by the caregiver. I stood up, walked to the living room, and picked up my phone to call attorney. Attorney said, "Miss Sue, I've looked over the divorce agreement. The property division Adrian provided is reasonable. But given your current situation, you could actually ask for more." Attorney says, "Everything's prepared, the media is ready, as soon as you give the order, we can expose it at any moment. But Miss Sue, are you sure you want to do this?" Adrian I interrupted him, "Attorney, just do as I say. By the way, help me book the best cemetery, located on high ground where I can see the whole city. Also, make my funeral grand, inviting all friends and relatives from the Gu family and the Lin family, and all shareholders of the Gu group." After hanging up, I went to the study on the second floor and opened Adrian's safe. His safe password is still my birthday. After all these years, he has never changed it. Inside the safe, there is a photo of him and Lena, and a letter Lena wrote to her first love. In the letter, she says that she will make Adrian fall in love with her, then cheat all his money, and run away with her first love. I took out the letter, put it into my own bag, and restored the safe to its original state. This letter was found by accident when I came to the study to look for documents last time. At first I thought I had mistaken it, until Dr. Charles uncovered their financial dealings, and I was certain Lena has been acting from the beginning. "Adrian, Lena." I stood up, walked to him, and looked up at him. Adrian is much taller, more than a head taller than me. I used to love leaning into his embrace, listening to his heartbeat, but now I only feel that the scent on him is disgusting. I said, "Adrian, we have been married for 3 years. Have you ever loved me, even for a second?" Adrian's eyes flickered briefly, then he recovered his, "Evelyn, what's the point of saying this now? Between us, it's already over. If Ruaru wakes up, I must take responsibility for her." I laughed, a loud, hysterical laugh. The sickly sweet taste in my throat could no longer be suppressed, and a mouthful of blood sprayed onto his white shirt. Adrian jumped in fright, stepped back, and looked at me with disgust. "Evelyn, what kind of trick are you playing again?" I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and said, "It's nothing, just amusing." "Adrian, I wish you and Lena a long and harmonious marriage." After saying that, I turned and walked into the guest room, closed the door, and kept his curses outside. It's late at night, and I sit by the window, staring at the moon outside. My phone rang. It was my best friend, Tina, calling. Tina says, "Wanwan, what's going on with Adrian? That jerk, I heard he brought up divorce again. Are you being wronged?" I'll go find him and settle the score right now. I hurriedly stopped her. Tangled, don't go, I'm fine. By the way, there's something I need to ask you. Tina was silent for a few seconds and said, Wonwan, are you feeling unwell? I noticed your complexion was poor at the last party. Don't hide it from me. My nose tingled and I almost cried. Tina is my only friend, and the only one who truly treats me well. I choked and said, Tang Tang, I have late-stage gastric cancer. I don't have much time left. After I'm gone, please help me arrange my funeral. It must be grand. And held 3 days later, inviting Adrian and Lena, and they must come. Tina cried on the other end of the phone. Wonwan, what are you talking about? I will take you to the best hospital tomorrow. We will surely get you treated. I told her. Tang Tang, don't be sad. I've already arranged everything. All the grievances I've suffered these 3 years, I will make them repay double. You just take care of the funeral properly, and later you can watch my show. After hanging up the phone, I felt my body growing increasingly weak, as if a knife was stirring in my stomach. I pulled out a painkiller from the drawer, swallowed 2 tablets. And only then did it ease a little. I walked to the desk, turned on the computer, and began to write my will, not for Adrian, but for all the women whose eyes have been blinded by love, telling them not to, like me, give everything for someone who does not love them back. The next morning, I went with Adrian to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce procedures. When taking photos, he stood far away from me. The photographer asked us to come closer, and he impatiently said, Hurry up and shoot. Ruoruo is still waiting for me at the hospital. At the moment I got the divorce certificate, I wasn't sad, I felt relieved instead. Adrian put the divorce certificate into his wallet and said, Evelyn, from now on, the bridge belongs to the bridge and the road to the road. Let's not contact each other again. I nod and say, okay. By the way, Adrian, I have a request. In 3 days I'm going to host a gathering. I hope you can come. And Lena, you bring someone along as well. Adrian furrowed his brow and said, a party? I'm not interested. I smiled and said, consider this my last request to you. After all, we are husband and wife. Moreover, I have a gift for you and Miss Lin. I'm sure you will like it. Perhaps the word gift moved him. Or perhaps he didn't want to entangle with me anymore. He finally nodded. Okay, I'll go. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I went straight to the hospital. Dr. Charles was already waiting for me in the ward. He looked at my pale face and said, Evelyn, your body can't take any more. You must be hospitalized. I lay on the hospital bed and said, Dr. Charles, help me hold on for 3 more days. Just 3 days is enough. After 3 days, I can walk away with peace. Dr. Charles sighed and said, I'll give you the best medicine to help you sustain as much as possible, but you must promise me that you won't get so excited again. I nodded and closed my eyes. For these 3 days, I will rest well, recover my spirit, and wait to see the fates of Adrian and Lena. I know my time is short, but I must personally see them ruin themselves and fall from grace before I can close my eyes. On the first day, Adrian didn't come to see me. His moments were full of Lena's photos. With the caption, My girl is awake at last, many people liked and commented below, wishing them happiness. I looked at those comments and felt only laughter. The next day, Tina came to see me and brought me the funeral program. She said, Wonwan, everything has been arranged, the cemetery is booked, guests are invited, Adrian and Lena have also confirmed they will come. I took the schedule and looked it over, and said, Tang Tang, thank you. By the way, the large screen in the viewing hall must be properly tested. The video I plan to show later must not have any mistakes. Tina nodded and said, Don't worry, I have already had professionals test it. It will be fine. The 3rd day morning, my consciousness began to blur. Dr. Charles said that my organs had started to fail. I stubbornly drew in a breath, had the nurse give me a light makeup, and put on my favorite white dress. This dress was Adrian proposed to me with, and I had never had the courage to wear it until now. Tina held my hand, crying, Wonwan, endure a little longer, you will soon see their fate. I smiled and said, I already saw it, help me bring the phone over, I want to send one last message to Adrian. I edited a message, Adrian, the party will be held at the cemetery in the western suburbs, remember to bring Lena to join us. Then I pressed send, and and my phone slid from my hand and fell to the ground. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier. And I finally lost consciousness completely. In that moment when I lost consciousness, I seemed to see Adrian and Lena walking into the cemetery, their smug smiles in front of the chapel, and their frightened expressions when the screen lit up. I know my revenge has succeeded. I drifted in midair, watching Tina hug my body and cry heartbrokenly, while Dr. Charles shook his head and covered the white cloth. The sun shone through the hospital window and fell on my cold face. Yet I could not feel any warmth. I heard the vibration of a phone in my ear. It was Adrian replying with a text. Nerves. The party is held in the cemetery. Evelyn, what trick are you pulling this time? I stared at the text message, a cold smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Adrian, you still think I am throwing a tantrum at you? You will never know. This time I am serious. Tina wiped away her tears, picked up my phone and replied, I am Tina. Evelyn has left. Today is her funeral. Her last wish is to see you and Lena once more. If you still have any sense of conscience, come over. After sending the message, Tina began arranging the follow-up matters. She had the funeral home pick up my body, then called attorney to confirm the arrival times for the media and guests. I stood beside her, watching her orderly and busy, my heart full of gratitude. If it weren't for her, my revenge plan could not have been carried out. Adrian received Tina's message while he was at the hospital feeding Lena kanji. Lena leaned against the bed and said coquettishly, Tington, Evelyn, that woman is at it again, isn't she, hosting a party at a cemetery? Has she really gone crazy? Adrian frowned, placing the bowl on the nightstand, his tone a bit irritable. Who knows what she's up to this time? But Tina says she left, and she says today is her funeral. Do you think that's true? Lena, a flash of pride crossed her eyes. But she deliberately pretended to be surprised. She left. How can it be so sudden? Ting Chen, do you think she couldn't bear it after divorcing you and committed suicide? If we go, will people gossip about us? Adrian fell silent for a few seconds. He wasn't lacking suspicion. It was just that Evelyn, over these 3 years, had played the act of pretending to be dead or sick too many times to keep him emotionally engaged, and he was already immune. But Tina is Evelyn's best friend. She would never joke about something like this. Lena, seeing his hesitation, reached out and grabbed his hand, act spoiled, and said, Ting, I think we should go. If she really has left, if we don't go, people will say we are cold-hearted. Moreover, we can take this opportunity to announce our relationship. Let everyone know that you are mine now. Lena's words reached Adrian's heart. He had long wanted to announce to the world his relationship with Lena. It was just that Evelyn's entanglement had made there be no suitable opportunity before. Now Evelyn has left, which is exactly an excellent opportunity. Adrian nodded and said, Okay, let's go, but you're just awake. Your body is still weak. I'll have the driver drive slowly. Lena smiled and leaned into his embrace. Ting Chen, you're really good to me. But no one saw the calculating light deep in her eyes. She wasn't sick at all. This 3-year vegetative life was just a carefully planned ruse with her first love. She just wants Adrian to feel that he owes her, and then willingly give her everything. I floated beside them, watching Lena's hypocritical appearance, trembling with anger. If I had a physical body now, I would rush up and tear her face apart. At noon, Adrian brought Lena to a cemetery in the western suburbs. The funeral had already been arranged. Black and white mourning couplets hung all around, and the sad music played softly. Most of the guests had arrived, shareholders of the GU Group, relatives from the GU and Lin families, and some media reporters. Tina stands at the door to greet them. Seeing Adrian holding Lena's hand, her face turning cold in an instant, Tina says, Adrian, how dare you bring her here? You're the one who forced Wanwan to die. Adrian frowned, saying, Tina, pay attention to what you say. Evelyn and I have already divorced. If Ruuru is my girlfriend, what problem would there be if I bring her here? Lena feigned a look of grievance, tugging Adrian's sleeve. Ting Chen, let's just go. I don't want to argue with people here. The sight of her pitiful appearance instantly aroused Adrian's protective instinct. Adrian frowned at Tina and said, Tina, don't go too far. Ruoruo just woke up and can't take. After speaking, he took Lena by the hand and walked straight into the Hall of Remembrance. In the center of the memorial hall lay my black and white photo. In the photo I was smiling brightly. It was taken before my wedding, and it was also the happiest moment of these 3 years. When Adrian saw the photo, his steps paused, and a trace of complex emotion flickered in his eyes. But it was quickly replaced by indifference. Lena looked at my photo, a barely noticeable smile curling at the corners of her mouth, then deliberately pretended to be sad. Pulled out a handkerchief from her bag and wiped her eyes. "Evelyn, I'm sorry, I didn't know you would think like this. Don't worry, I will take good care of Adrian, so he won't be lonely." The surrounding guests began to whisper among themselves, some saying Evelyn was too pitiful, having given so much for a man who didn't love her, others saying Lena was too calculating, waking up and eagerly snatching someone else's husband. Adrian, upon hearing these rumors, his face looked a bit unhappy. He walked to the podium in front of the hall, picked up the microphone, and cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming to Evelyn's funeral today. Evelyn is my ex-wife. Although we are divorced, I still appreciate the efforts she made over the past 3 years." He hesitated for a moment, reached out and took Lena's hand, and continued, "But people must look forward. If Ruaru wakes up, she will be the person I vow to protect for the rest of my life. Today, I want to take this opportunity to propose to Ruaru. Ruaru, would you marry me?" Lena widened her eyes in surprise, covering her mouth, and tears instantly filled her eyes as she nodded vigorously. "Ting Chen, I am willing, I am willing." Adrian took a diamond ring from his pocket and slipped it onto Lena's hand. The two embraced, looking blissfully happy. The guests in the audience were stunned. No one expected that at Evelyn's funeral, Adrian would actually propose to Lena. Tina trembled with anger, about to rush up to argue with them. When attorney stopped her, attorney whispered, "Miss Tang, don't act impulsively, wait a little longer, the next part is coming." I float on the stage, watching Adrian and Lena with that disgusting look, wishing I could spit in their faces with one mouthful. "Adrian, you really are something. Proposing at my funeral, just wait to receive my gift." Just as Adrian and Lena were embracing and accepting everyone's blessings, the funeral home's large screen suddenly lit up. At first, the screen was black, and everyone looked at it in confusion, not knowing what had happened. Adrian frowned and shouted to the audience, who turned on the screen, "Turn it off." But no one paid him any mind, and the screen quickly showed a scene. In the scene, it was Lena and a stranger, the man being Dr. Charles' discovery of Lena's first love, Ryan. Ryan said, "Ruaru, Adrian really believes you're in a vegetative state." Lena smiled and said, "Of course I've acted so convincingly. How could he not believe it? If not for Evelyn getting in the way, I would have taken it long ago. But now it's fine. Adrian has divorced her, and once I obtain shares of the GU group, we'll run away far and wide." Ryan nodded and said, "As for the breaks, won't someone notice?" Lena sneered, "Don't worry, I've already taken care of it. If anyone searches later, they'll only find Evelyn's name. After all, she argued with Adrian that day, which conveniently made her my scapegoat." The scene on the screen suddenly shifted, turning into Lena's conversation with the nurse. The nurse said, "Miss Lin, Mr. Gu came to see you again today. I followed what you said and told him that you would keep calling his name as soon as you woke up." Lena smiled and said, "Well done, I'll raise your salary this month. By the way, Evelyn, is there any movement over there?" The caregiver said, "There's nothing going on. I heard she has been going to the hospital frequently lately. It seems her health isn't very good." Lena, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes, "It's better if she dies sooner, so she won't get in my sight." The screen switches to the image again, this time showing Dr. Charles holding the medical examination report. Dr. Charles said, "Evelyn, this is Lena's medical report. She is not a vegetable person at all. She is in a coma, but severely. And her coma was caused by humans. It has nothing to do with you. Also, this is the DNA report of the child you had an abortion for. It shows that the child is not Adrian's. The me in the scene is Evelyn, holding the report, her hand trembling as she chokes out, I knew it, Adrian had a problem." Finally, the last thing on the screen was my farewell recorded for the camera. I wore patient clothes, my face pale, but my gaze was firm. I said, "Adrian, Lena, when you see this video. I will no longer be in this world. I know you have never loved me, Lena. You pretended to be ill for 3 years for money, calculating your fortune, and you, Adrian, for your so-called white moonlight, have treated me coldly in every way, not even willing to glance at me when I had a miscarriage. I paused, then continued. The child I miscarried was not yours. You knew it a long time ago, right? The reason you kept bringing up divorce is that you think I wore a green hat for you. But you never considered why I was with another man at that time. It was because of you, Adrian. You were outside Lena's hospital room every day during the time I needed care most, ignoring me. I was despondent, and that's why I made a mistake. Also, Lena, do you think your plan is flawless? I recorded your conversation with Ryan, and your conversation with the nurse. You deliberately staged a car accident and framed me, just to get Adrian and his fortune. Do you really think Adrian will be sincere with you? What he loves has always been himself. I, Evelyn, have the most painful regret of my life, marrying Adrian. I will warn all women with my life not to believe in the so-called white moonlight, and not to give everything for a man who doesn't love you, Adrian. Lena, your retribution begins now. The video finished playing, and the funeral hall fell into silence. Everyone was stunned. Adrian's face was as pale as a sheet, his body trembling as he stared at Lena with incredulity and said, Ruaru, this can't be real, right? Tell me, this isn't real. Lena panicked too. She grabbed Adrian's hand and said, Linting, you have to believe me. This is Evelyn's fabrication. She's trying to frame me. She just doesn't want us to be together. No one believes her words, because the evidence in the video is too conclusive. Ryan stood among the crowd, and when the video started playing he turned to run, but was stopped by police who had already laid in wait. The police stepped in front of Lena and said, Lena, we have received a report, and we suspect you of attempted murder and fraud. Come with us. Lena, the legs went soft with fear and she collapsed to the ground. Adrian, looking at Lena being taken away by the police, and then looking at my photo on the screen, suddenly collapsed. He knelt before my spirit, slapped his own face hard, crying, Wonwan, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Can you come back? I won't mention divorce again. I will take good care of you. But I can no longer hear his apology. I float in midair, watching him cry his eyes out, with no trace of pity in my heart, only the pleasure of successful revenge. Adrian, this is all you deserve. You and Lena owe me. The reporters in the audience frantically took photos with their cameras, and the shareholders of the GU family group had darkened expressions. Discussing holding a shareholders' meeting to remove Adrian from the chairmanship, Tina walked to my side, placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums at my spiritual altar, and smiled, saying, Wonwan, did you see that? They have all gotten their comeuppance. You can rest assured now. I looked at Tina and laughed as well. The sunlight streamed through the window of the chapel, falling onto my photo, where I smiled just as brightly as ever. I know I can finally let go of everything and leave peacefully. Adrian's crying echoed in the hall of the funeral, piercing and ridiculous. He knelt and crawled to my coffin, slapping the coffin with both hands, nails oozing blood, repeatedly shouting my name, Wonwan, Evelyn, come out, look at me, I know I'm wrong. Tina stood to the side. Adrian, what good does it do to say these things now? While Wonwan was alive, you ignored her, treated her like air. Now that she's dead, who are you trying to fool? Adrian suddenly raised his head, his eyes red, bloodshot, like a out-of-control beast. I didn't pretend. I really know I'm wrong. Tina, tell me, did Wonwan really have stomach cancer? When did she get it? Why didn't you tell me? Tina laughed coldly. Tell you, what use would that be? Would you take her to the doctor? Back then, your eyes only had Lena. Wonwan in your heart was not as good as a stranger. When she was diagnosed with late-stage stomach cancer, you were at the hospital feeding Lena Bird's nest. Do you think she would tell you, advanced stomach cancer? Adrian muttering to himself, his body swayed and he nearly fell. He recalled the day I signed the divorce agreement, the blood I spurted on his shirt, the despair in my eyes when I asked whether he had ever loved me, and the last text I sent him. So it wasn't a joke, it was my final farewell. 3 years ago, when I first became pregnant, I felt nauseous every morning, couldn't eat anything. At that time he thought I was pretending to get more of his attention, and he scolded me for being melodramatic. Now I realize that was not morning sickness at all, but the early symptoms of stomach cancer. It was him. He missed the best time for treatment. He personally pushed me toward the abyss of death. Ah, Adrian let out a painful scream, banging his head against the coffin, his forehead quickly bleeding. The surrounding guests looked at him in this state, some sympathized, some sneered, and more were indifferent. At this moment, the vice chairman of the GU group, that is, Adrian's uncle Martin, walked over, his face dark. Ting-chen, stop this. This is a funeral, not a place for you to go crazy. Also, the media are all here. At this moment, the vice chairman of the GU group, who is Adrian's uncle, Martin, walked over, his face grim as he said, Ting-chen, stop messing around. This is a funeral, not a place for your madness. Also, the media are all here. Do you want the GU group to be on the headlines tomorrow? Martin's words were like a cold splash of water soaking Adrian's head. He turned his head and looked around, only to see media reporters taking photos crazily at him. Flashes continuously flashing, the shareholders' faces growing uglier by the moment, whispering about something. Only then did he realize that his earlier misstep not only shamed him but also brought enormous trouble to the GU group. Adrian struggled to stand up, but his legs buckled and he collapsed to his knees again. Martin frowned and signaled the bodyguards beside him to help him up. As the bodyguard barely touched Adrian's arm, Adrian jerked him away. Don't touch me. Wanwan is still here. I want to be with her. Tina stepped forward, pulled out a document from her bag, and threw it in front of Adrian. Adrian, you think Wanwan's revenge ends here? Take a look at this. Adrian puzzledly picked up the document and opened it. His face instantly turned pale. It was a share transfer agreement, and the contract stated that Evelyn would transfer her 15% stake in the GU Group entirely to the GU Group's competitor, Shin-chan Group. There were also Evelyn's signature and the date exactly when she signed their divorce agreement. Adrian tremblingly said, Impossible, how could Wanyan have shares in the GU Group? I never knew. Tina sneered, there are many things you don't know. This share was left to Wanyan by her father before he died. She didn't tell you because she was afraid you would go after these shares. Now, you and Lena forced her to die, and she transferred the shares to Shin-chan Group. The GU Group is about to change hands, and you deserve this. Martin also leaned over to take a look at the document, shaking with anger. Ting-chen, look at the mess you've made. Evelyn's holdings, though not large, are enough to allow Shin-chan Group to join with other minor shareholders to seize control. You're about to destroy the GU family's foundation. Adrian sank to the ground, his mind blank. He thought of Evelyn's father, the old man who had shown him a great deal of appreciation. Before the old man died, he had held his hand and urged him to take good care of Evelyn. But what had he done? Not only did he fail to take good care of Evelyn, he even drove her to a dead end. Now Evelyn is taking revenge on him in this way, causing him to lose the GU family group, which hurts him more than killing him. Just then, Adrian's phone rang. It was the company's secretary calling. The secretary's voice quivered. President GU, something's not good. Shin-chan Group suddenly announced the acquisition of GU Group's shares. Many minority shareholders have already agreed to transfer. The stock price has plummeted by 30%, and the board has convened an emergency meeting, asking you to come back immediately. Adrian hung up the phone, struggling to stand. But he just couldn't steady himself. Martin looked at him and said, You had better hurry back to the company to handle things. Leave this to me here, remember. If the GU Group falls into your hands, don't you dare acknowledge me as your uncle. After speaking, Martin turned to greet the guests and left, Adrian standing there in a daze by himself. I float beside Adrian, watching his disconsolate, soul-shattered look, and my heart is filled with the thrill of vengeance. Adrian, aren't you the one who cares most about the GU Group? I will ruin it, and take everything away from you. Adrian, being helped by his bodyguards, staggered out of the memorial hall. As soon as he stepped to the gate of the cemetery, he was surrounded by a group of reporters. The reporters spoke one after another, asking, Mr. GU, is it true that Miss Lena is suspected of attempted murder and fraud? Mr. GU, Did the transfer of Miss Evelyn's shares to the Shin-chan Group mean that the GU Group is about to be changed in ownership? Mr. GU, at Miss Evelyn's funeral you proposed to Miss Lena. Was that planned long ago? Adrian, covering his head, could not say a word, and barely sat in the car under the escort of the bodyguards. As the car started, he saw Tina standing at the door of the Hall of Reverence, making a goodbye gesture to his car, with a hint of a mocking smile at the corner of her mouth. Adrian back at the company. The boardroom was already full of people. When the shareholders saw him come in, they all stood up and looked at him with pale faces. The old chairman, Grandpa GU, that is, Adrian's grandfather, was so furious that he pounded the table with his cane. Ting Chen, kneel down for me, Adrian. Thud, he knelt down, lowering his head and dared not speak. Old Mr. GU said, tell me, what is going on with Lena? What about Evelyn's shares? Do you know, because of your own selfish desires, the GU Group is now facing an unprecedented crisis. Adrian sobbed. Grandpa, I was wrong. I really was wrong. I didn't know that Lena had been lying to me all along, nor that Wanwan held shares in her possession. Don't you know, old Mr. Gu's face turned pale with anger. As the president of the GU Group, you don't even know what kind of person your own woman is. You don't know how much wealth your wife holds in her hands. Are you fit to be this president? Evelyn, that child, such a good girl, who gave you her heart and soul, you forced her to die for you. Now, she is taking revenge in her own way. Are you satisfied? Adrian recalls Evelyn's kindness, remembers everything she did for him, and tears pour down. Grandfather, I was really wrong. I want to make amends, make up for it. Old Mr. GU sneered. People are already dead. How can you make up for it? Now the most important thing is to preserve the GU Group. Shin-chan Group has already issued a statement. If we don't hand over the controlling stake, they will expose more scandals about the GU Group, and then the GU Group will really be finished. Just then, the conference room door was pushed open, and the secretary walked in carrying a document, his face pale as he said, President GU, this is the final ultimatum from Shin-chan Group, demanding that we hand over the controlling stake within 24 hours, or else all the dark secrets will be disclosed. Adrian took the document, his hands trembling constantly. He knew the chairman of Shin-chan Group was Evelyn's cousin. Evelyn had already arranged everything. She not only wanted to ruin his reputation, but also to make him lose the GU Group, the company he cared about most. Martin said, Dad, there is only one way now, which is to remove Ting-chan's president position. Then I will come forward to negotiate with Shin-chan Group. Maybe there is still a chance to salvage it. Shareholders unanimously agreed, yes. Remove Adrian from the president position. Let Vice Chairman GU take the lead in negotiations. Old Mr. GU looked at Adrian in one glance, sighed helplessly and said, all right, as you all say, Ting Chen, from now on you are no longer the president of the GU Group. Reflect properly at home. Adrian no rebuttal. He knew this was the punishment he deserved. He stood up, disheartened, and walked out of the conference room. As soon as he stepped out of the company building, he saw a crowd of reporters gathering around, and there were many angry shareholders throwing eggs and vegetable leaves at him. Adrian, you con artist, give us back our hard-earned money. You don't deserve to be the president. Adrian let the eggs and vegetable leaves pelt him, feeling no resentment, only endless regret. He thought of Evelyn's pale face as she signed the divorce papers, the blood she'd sprayed on his shirt, the last text she'd sent him. If he could turn back time, he would take good care of Evelyn and never let her suffer any injustice again. Time cannot flow backward, and the mistakes he made can never be made up for. He staggered back to the empty villa, where traces of Evelyn were everywhere. There was a scarf she had half knit on the sofa, a book she hadn't finished on the desk, and snacks she hadn't finished in the kitchen. Adrian walked to the sofa, picked up the half-woven scarf, and the scent of Evelyn lingered on it. He remembered how, when Evelyn was knitting the scarf, he mocked her for being old-fashioned, saying who still wears handmade knitted scarves nowadays. But now, he held this scarf tightly in his arms, crying like a child. He walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and inside were many dishes he liked to eat, all prepared in advance by Evelyn and frozen in the freezer. He remembered Evelyn getting up early every morning to make him breakfast. And no matter how late he came home at night, she would leave a light on for him and a bowl of hot soup. But what about him? He had never eaten a proper meal she cooked, never spent a single day properly with her. Adrian takes out a bowl of Evelyn's braised pork, microwaves it. After heating, he takes a bite. The familiar taste remains. But he can no longer smell the initial disdain, only endless bitterness. While eating, he cries, muttering in his mouth, "I'm sorry, I really am sorry, will you come back?" Just then, his phone rang. It was the police station. The officer said, "Adrian sir, Lena has confessed everything. She said that 3 years ago the car accident was planned by her and her first love Ryan, with the purpose of framing your ex-wife Evelyn, and then deceiving your trust, thereby embezzling the GU Group's assets. Additionally, she confessed to conspiring with Ryan to move GU Group's assets, involving up to 50 million. Adrian hung up the phone and collapsed completely. He never expected that the white moonlight he had loved for 3 years and protected for 3 years was actually such a vicious woman. For this woman, he had lost the wife who loved him, his career, and everything he had. He walked to the study on the second floor, opened the safe, and inside, besides a photo of him and Lena, there was also Evelyn's diary. He had never read Evelyn's diary before, he thought it was her privacy, but now, he can't wait to understand Evelyn's inner world. The first page of the diary writes about their first meeting. "Today at university I met Adrian. He wore a white shirt, sunlight shining on him. He was really handsome. I think I started to like him." The diary that follows records from the moment they met, to falling in love, and then getting married. With every little detail. "Today Ting-chen proposed to me. I'm so happy. I'm finally going to marry the person I love. Today we got married. Ting-chen said he would love me for a lifetime. And I believe him. Today I am pregnant, I'm going to be a mother, and Ting-chen will surely be very happy." Seeing this, Adrian's tears could no longer be restrained. He recalls that when Evelyn was pregnant, he not only failed to be happy, but also scolded her for being dramatic. He really was a jerk. The last few pages of the diary recorded her mood after being diagnosed with stomach cancer. "Today I was diagnosed with advanced stomach cancer. I am so scared, but I can't tell Ting-chen." His eyes now only see Lena. "I must live well, wait until I see Ting-chen and Lena's fate, then I will go. Today I signed the divorce agreement, I signed it with blood. Ting-chen is still so cold, but it's okay, my revenge plan is about to begin." Today I finished recording the last segment of the video. I don't have much time left. Ting-chen, Lena, your retribution is coming soon. Adrian held the diary and cried his heart out. He finally knew how much Evelyn loved him. And also how much she despised him. She used her life to deliver his heaviest blow. The next morning, the GU Group held a press conference, announcing that Adrian would no longer serve as president, and Martin would take over. At the same time, Martin announced that the GU Group agreed to surrender control and merge with Shin-chan Group. Adrian did not attend the press conference. He went alone to Evelyn's grave. The photo on the tombstone showed Evelyn smiling so brightly. He placed the diary in front of the tombstone, and laid another bouquet of Evelyn's favorite white roses. He knelt in front of the tombstone and said, "Wonwan, I've come to see you. The GU Group is gone. I'm no longer the president. Lena has also faced the punishment she deserves. Are you satisfied? I know nothing I do can make up for the hurt I caused you, but I really miss you. Wonwan, I'm sorry." The wind blowing through the cemetery seemed to be Evelyn's reply. Adrian knelt in front of the grave marker from morning until evening, until it grew dark, when Martin's guards forcibly dragged him away. Since then, Adrian has changed into a different person. He no longer wears expensive suits or drives a luxury car, but clothes himself simply and goes every day to Evelyn's grave, bringing her a bouquet of white roses and talking to her. He keeps Evelyn's diary with him, taking it out to read every day, as if Evelyn is still by his side. Some say that Adrian has gone crazy, giving up everything for a dead woman. But only he knows he isn't crazy. His atoning, he will spend the rest of his life repaying the debt he owes Evelyn. And I, Evelyn, looking at Adrian in this state, feel no shred of pity. This is all he deserves. He ruined his own life and ruined mine. My revenge is finally complete. I thought Adrian's atonement was already the tail end of this revenge, but I didn't expect Lena's operation in the custody center to push this scene toward an even more trashy climax. That day I drifted beside Tina, watching her receive a call from the police station. After she finished listening, Tina laughed and slammed the table. "Wonwan, you must see this. Lena is really something." Still trying to pull Adrian down, it turns out that Lena, after being caught, knew she could not escape the charges of fraud and attempted murder, and she suddenly changed her story, saying that 3 years ago she had planned the car accident and transfer of GU Group's assets. Adrian had known all along and even helped her cover it up. Lena also produced so-called evidence, a few conversations between her and Adrian, in the recordings. Adrian indeed mentioned not letting Evelyn discover it and moving funds through secret accounts. I drifted into the interrogation room of the detention center, looking at Lena's distorted face as she shouted at the police, "I didn't lie to you. Adrian knew everything all along. He just wanted to use me to get rid of Evelyn, so that he could be with me openly and legitimately. He even took half of those assets." The police quickly found Adrian and took him to the police station. Adrian looked at the evidence with a face ashen and trembling with rage. "This is forged. Lena is framing me. Those words were from a chat I had with her about something else. She deliberately edited and spliced them." No matter how Adrian defends himself, the contents of the recording are laid out. Plus his previous impropriety at my funeral and the scandal of the GU Group being acquired, the public has long lost trust in him. Once the news leaked, the online world was in an uproar. And everyone was saying that Adrian is a hypocrite with a venomous heart, which also dragged the GU family's reputation down. Martin nearly fainted from anger. He found Adrian, pointing at his nose and yelling, "You cursed miscreant, I told you Lena wasn't a good thing. But you wouldn't listen. Now, she's dragged you into this as well. Our GU family is completely finished." Adrian sits on the ground, tightly clutching Evelyn's diary in his hands, tears streaming silently down his face. He recalls the origin of those recording conversations. It was Lena who had told him she wanted to do a little business, fearing Evelyn would misunderstand, and asked him to help take some special channels. At that time, his mind was full of Lena, and he agreed without much thought. Never imagining he would be used like this by her. To prove his innocence, Adrian began to search for evidence frantically. He combed through all chats and call records with Lena. Even went to the bank to pull his transaction history, hoping to prove he hadn't those ill-gotten funds. But Lena had already set up the trap long ago. Those pieces of evidence were either destroyed by her or doctored beyond recognition. Just when Adrian was crawling to the edge, Tina found him. Tina tossed a document in front of him and coldly said, "This is what Wonwan asked me to give you before she died. If Lena betrays you, you're to have this." Adrian opened the file with confusion. Inside were Lena and Ryan's chat records, detailed accounts of asset transfers, and even a pre-recorded confession Lena had prepared in advance. In that video, Lena triumphantly said, "Adrian is a fool, fooled by me at every turn. When I get the money, I'll pull him down with me and have him end up like that bitch Evelyn, ruined and disgraced." Adrian looking at these pieces of evidence, his body trembled, nearly losing his balance. He looked up at Tina, his voice choked as he said, "Wonwan. She already knew Lena would betray me. Why would she help me?" Tina snorted coldly. "You think Wonwan wanted to help you? She just doesn't want you to die a painless death. She wants you to see clearly what the white moonlight you guarded with your life actually is. She wants you to know how ridiculous your coldness and hurt toward her back then were." Adrian took the evidence and went to the police station to clear his name of injustice. Lena was sentenced to 20 years in prison for fabricating evidence and framing others. Ryan also received 15 years for involvement in planning the car accident and fraud. Although his innocence was vindicated, Adrian's life was already ruined. After the GU Group was acquired by the Shin-chan Group, Martin cast all his resentment on him and expelled him from the GU family. He went from a high and mighty CEO to a homeless, penniless wretch. He has nowhere to go and can only live in a shabby rental. Every morning, he goes to Evelyn's grave, brings her a bouquet of white roses, then sits in front of the tombstone and reads Evelyn's diary over and over. He recalls all the bad things he did to Evelyn in the past, the pain she endured when she was ill, and the despair she felt when she signed the divorce agreement. His heart aches as if cut by a knife. One day, he ran into the chairman of Shin-chan Group at the tomb, Evelyn's cousin. The cousin looked at him with a gaze full of contempt. "Adrian, you deserve this mess you're in. How much Wang Wn loved you in life, that's how much of a bastard you are now. I'm telling you, I'm acquiring the GU Group not only for Wang Wn, but for my uncle. He was schemed by your father and died of heartbreak years ago. Now, I've finally avenged them." Adrian was dumbfounded. He had never known about these things. He thought of Evelyn's father, the old man who had always been kind and amiable to him, and realized that his death was somehow connected to his own father. He finally understood that Evelyn's revenge was not only for herself, but also for her father. Since then, Adrian has become more silent and withdrawn. He found a job delivering takeout, working early from dawn till dusk. The money he earns, besides covering his own basic expenses, is all spent on buying white roses for Evelyn, or donated to cancer charities. He wants to make up for his owe to Evelyn in this way. One time, while delivering takeout, he ran into a former subordinate. The subordinate, seeing him in the delivery uniform, his face weathered, was surprised and said, "Mr. Gu, how did you end up like this?" Adrian smiled, his smile full of bitterness. "I'm no longer Mr. Gu, I'm just an ordinary person." The subordinate sighed and said, "If you had treated Miss Sue well back then, you wouldn't be in this situation today. Miss Sue is really a good woman. When you weren't at the company, she often came to help you handle various tasks, and she protected you from a lot of trouble with alcohol. Once you were sick, she stayed in the hospital with you for 3 days and nights. When you woke up, you only cared about Miss Lin. At that time, we all felt sorry for her." Adrian's tears flowed instantly. He had never known that Evelyn had done so much for him without his knowledge. He recalled when he was sick, there was always someone by his side caring for him. He thought it was a caregiver, but it turned out to be Evelyn. He had once complained that the caregiver did a poor job, threw a big tantrum. And now thinking back, Evelyn must have been very sad then. That night, Adrian sat in front of Evelyn's tomb and cried through the entire night. He told Evelyn every regret and guilt from these years, word by word, but the person in the grave would never respond to him again. I float by his side, watching him like this, and there is not a hint of compassion in my heart. This is all he deserves. What he owed Evelyn before, he has now repaid with his own life. Tina also often comes to see me. Every time she comes, she tells me about Adrian's latest. One time, Tina smiled and said, "Luna, look how miserable Adrian is now. He comes to give you flowers every day, rain or shine. He has never cared about anyone this much before." I looked at Tina and smiled. I know my revenge has been completely successful. Adrian has lost his career, reputation, and family, leaving only endless regret and guilt, which hurts more than killing him. One day, under heavy rain, Adrian still came to give me flowers as usual. He didn't use an umbrella, soaking wet all over, tightly clutching a bouquet of white roses. Many petals washed away by the rain. He knelt before the tombstone, saying again and again, "Wanwan, I was wrong, I really was wrong. Can you come back?" Suddenly, he clutched his chest and collapsed. Pale, I saw a medical report fall from his pocket, with the words "advanced stomach cancer." It turned out that he also got stomach cancer, the same illness as me. The ambulance arrived quickly and took Adrian away. I hovered behind the ambulance, watching his feeble appearance. And there was not a single ripple in my heart. This is probably retribution. He had once cared nothing for me, and now he is tasting the pain of illness. Adrian, after being hospitalized, Martin visited him once, but upon seeing his condition, he only sighed and left. Lena heard about it in prison, and not only did she not feel sympathy, she laughed and said, "He has his day, serves him right." Adrian lay on the hospital bed with no one around to take care of him. He took out Evelyn's diary, and as he looked at the handwriting, tears streamed down his face. He remembered Evelyn back when she first fell ill. She was also alone, lying in a hospital bed, lonely and in pain, while at that time he was in the hospital accompanying Lena, showing no care for her. In the last days of his life, He had the nurse help him record a video. In the video, he wore a patient gown, his face pale, his eyes full of regret. Late, I know I was wrong, I treated you too badly before, I'm sorry. If there is another life, I will love you properly, and never let you suffer even a little again. Not long after finishing the video, Adrian passed away. In his final moments, he clenched tightly in his hand Evelyn's diary and that half-finished scarf. Tina told Adrian the video of you to watch. She said with a smile, Wonwan, you see, he regretted it until his death. But what's the point of regretting? You can never come back. I watched the video of Adrian regretting. And there was no trace of emotion in my heart. His regret came too late and was too cheap. I traded my life for his regret. The price was high, but I do not regret it. Later, Tina placed Adrian's ashes with mine. She said, although he wasn't good to you before, he loved you until his death. So let him make it up to you in the next life. I drifted in front of the tombstone, looking at the two urns tightly pressed against each other, and I smiled. Love and hatred, in fact, are no longer important. I only know that I finally escaped that painful marriage and completed my revenge, and Adrian paid a heavy price for what he did. Maybe, a long time from now, someone will speak of this story, of a woman named Evelyn, and of how she, using her own life, waged the most thorough revenge against a man who did not love her and against a venomous woman. And I, Evelyn, will live forever in the warnings of women blinded by love, reminding them not to follow in my footsteps. Adrian's funeral was unusually quiet, with only Tina and a few old friends who had once benefited from Evelyn's grace in attendance. On the GU family side, only Martin came, his face so dark it seemed to drip with water. Old Mr. GU had a stroke and paralysis from the day the GU group changed hands. Bedbound, Adrian's father Richard, the man who had schemed against Evelyn's father back then, never showed up, rumored to be hiding in the old residence, closing his doors and staying indoors all day. I drifted at the funeral, watching Tina place Adrian's ashes box and mine side by side into the tombstone grooves. The tombstone bore no engraving of Adrian's name, only under my name was a line in small characters, "May you not fail in the next life." Tina crouched in front of the tombstone, gently caressing the cold stone. Wonwan, Adrian has been in your hands for this life as well. If there is knowledge in the underworld, please don't hate anymore. Rest well. A few days after the funeral, Tina brought surprising news. Richard wants to see her, saying there is something to hand over to Evelyn. I followed Tina to the GU family's old residence, the villa that once was grand now overgrown with weeds, the servants long gone, only Richard staying alone in the empty house. His hair had turned completely white, his back was hunched. When he saw Tina, he dropped to his knees with a thud and said, "Miss Tang, please hand this to Evelyn, and beg her to forgive me." Tina hurriedly helped him up, and he trembled as he took a yellowed envelope from his bosom. The envelope bore the handwriting of Evelyn's father, reading to daughter Wonwan. Richard, with red eyes, said, "Back then I and brother Sue started a company together. He had a project that could bring the company back from the brink. To keep it all for myself, I deliberately forged evidence to drive him into bankruptcy. He couldn't bear the blow and fell ill and never recovered. This letter is what he wrote on his deathbed. He said that if someday the descendants of the GU family learned the truth, they should hand it over to Wonwan themselves and beg her to forgive me. I kept it secret for so many years, until Ting Chen got into trouble, and I understood that this was retribution." Tina opened the letter, and I watched from the side. The letter contained no reproaches. Evelyn's father only reminded his daughter to take good care of herself. If Adrian treated her badly, he should leave early, and there would always be a place for her at home. The last line read, "Daddy doesn't want you to live in hatred. As long as you are safe and joyful, that's enough." Looking at those familiar characters, I couldn't help crying. The father had known my grievances long ago, but never let me take revenge for him. He only wished for my happiness. Tina burned the letter at my grave. When the flames leaped, I seemed to see my father's silhouette standing in the firelight, smiling and waving to me. At that moment, the hatred in my heart suddenly melted away. Richard later sold the old house, donated the money to the Cancer Foundation, and moved into a nursing home. Not long after, he passed away. on his deathbed. He asked the caregiver to scatter his ashes at the empty ground in front of my grave, saying he wanted to spend a lifetime atoning for Evelyn, Lena in prison. After learning that the GU family had completely fallen, she completely collapsed mentally, screaming all day long, "Adrian, money," and was eventually sent to the prison's psychiatric ward, living her entire life in a self-woven nightmare. Days passed day by day. Tina married a gentle and considerate doctor. Had a lovely daughter named Nyanwan. She often brings Nyanwan to visit me, holding Nyanwan to the tombstone, pointing to my photo and saying, "Nyanian, this is Aunt Wanwan. She is Mom's best friend, and also a very brave woman." When Nyanwan spoke for the first time, she actually shouted "Auntie" at my photo. Tina froze, then burst into tears, holding Nyanwan and saying, "Nyanwan, did you hear that? Nyanian called you Auntie. Look, someone is living well for your sake. Someone remembers you." I drifted beside them, watching Nyanwan's chubby little hand touch the tombstone, my heart full of warmth. It turns out that revenge is not the end. True liberation is to let go of hatred and see the people you care about live well. I recalled what Father Shin had said in his letter, "Peace and happiness are enough." Now Tina's peace and happiness, and Nyanwan's peace and happiness, that is enough. One spring a year, Tina came with Nyanwan to sweep the grave for me. In the clearing in front of the grave, a patch of white daisies grew, my favorite flower. Nyanwan picked a small daisy and tucked it into the crack of the tombstone, saying in a soft, childish voice, "Auntie Wanwan, the flowers are pretty, for you." The wind blew, the daisies swayed gently, and sunlight filtering through the leaves fell warm and bright on the tombstone. I watched Tina and Nyanwan's figures gradually become transparent. I knew I should go. Carrying my father's lingering concern, carrying Tina's longing, carrying my final attachment to this world, and I calmly departed. Before I left, I took one last look at the photo on the tombstone. The me in the photo smiled brilliantly. I seemed to hear Adrian's voice, saying, "Wanwan, I'm sorry." And I heard my father's voice, saying, "Wanwan, Dad loves you." And I also heard Tina and Nyanwan's voices. They said, "Wanwan, we miss you." In fact, love has never been everything in life. Rather than wasting yourself on people who aren't worth it, it's better to cherish the warmth around you. I have learned this lesson from a lifetime of experience, and I hope everyone who reads this story can understand it sooner. Loving yourself properly is the beginning of lifelong romance. As the sun set, Tina led Nyan Wn by the hand and walked away slowly. Their laughter echoed through the cemetery. I waved in their direction and then completely disappeared into the wind. This time, I had no regrets, only a sense of relief. Alright, that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. We'll keep updating with more exciting stories, and we look forward to seeing you next time.